This is Algeria, Africa's largest exporter of natural gas. In 2021, it exported 55 billion cubic meters, or BCM, of gas to the European Union. This was just 13% of the EU's total gas imports. In comparison, Russia exported 155 BCM, or 45% of all EU's gas imports. Still, Algeria is Europe's third largest supplier of gas after Russia and Norway. Europe's gas supply from Russia is now limited. The US and Norway have seized the opportunity. So, can Algeria and other gas-rich nations in Africa do the same? The EU imports 83% of all its gas, and for a long time, largely depended on Russia, especially Germany, which imported 55% of all its gas from Russia last year. The proximity to the EU and the presence of great infrastructure made sourcing gas from Russia a no-brainer. This imported gas was utilized in residential homes, industries, and power generation sectors. In other words, Russian gas has been essential for daily living and the economies of the EU countries. But now, tensions with Russia over the war in Ukraine have changed everything. The high dependency on Russian gas had made the EU geopolitically vulnerable, and Russia did not hesitate to take advantage. In the past year, Russia has cut its supply of gas to the EU by 88%, causing a crisis. The EU reacted by instituting short-term measures that required cutting gas usage by 15%. Germany had to limit the use of lighting and heating in public buildings. These actions were taken so that countries would spare enough gas to see them through the winter. But a problem remains in the long term. The EU needs enough gas next summer to fill up supplies ahead of next year's winter. It also plans to phase out Russian gas completely. Increased supplies from other sources may not be enough to offset the gap left by Russia. For Europe, the consensus was never again. It was a lesson learned that diversification is key. It is imperative to find gas elsewhere. And this is how Africa comes into the picture. Why Africa? Obviously, the continent is geographically close to Europe, has vast gas reserves, and is already an existing supplier. In total, the African continent has 18 trillion cubic meters of proven gas reserves. So, it's no surprise European leaders rushed to Africa. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz traveled to Senegal, which has major gas deposits off its coast. His country is keen on pursuing gas extraction projects in Senegal, which is expected to become a major gas producer in the region. Italian government ministers traveled to Algeria, Angola, the Republic of Congo, and Mozambique to strike energy deals. The Italian energy company Eni is discussing a second gas terminal with the government of Mozambique. Polish President Andrzej Duda visited Senegal, Ivory Coast, and Nigeria, looking for gas as well. These gas-rich countries could be on the verge of a transformational opportunity. They have the gas, and now have potential investors to help extract it and a ready customer. In theory, Russia's move to weaponize gas is a blessing in disguise for Africa. The continent has always had an unequal relationship with Europe, especially in trade. The scales may tilt in Africa's favor as it continues to attract new gas investments. The potential benefits cannot be understated. For example, Mozambique's current GDP is only $16 billion. The country announced it expects to make over $100 billion from gas in the next 25 years. That's massive and could be a game changer. You see, the country has the largest power generation potential in South Africa from untapped coal, hydro, gas, wind, and solar resources. But only 30% of its population has access to electricity. The added revenue, if utilized wisely, could help achieve universal electricity access. Mozambique made its natural gas discovery off its coast in 2010. The country just made its first ever gas export this month. The timing couldn't have been any better. However, there have been challenges along the way. Hundreds of families were forced to relocate and make way for gas support facilities. Their livelihoods were disrupted. Fishing, which was the source of food, was affected. They were inadequately compensated for land, and the promised jobs did not materialize. However, the biggest problem comes from ISIS-linked militants who have been threatening the gas-rich region. This could hamper production and affect exports. Algeria exports its gas to Europe through pipelines and tankers from its 2 LNG plants. It has long played a critical role in Europe's gas balance. In 2021, it achieved a record gas output of more than 100 BCM after a long period of stagnation. That's incredible, as demand is high. Algeria could profit handsomely in the long run. However, rising domestic use, regional politics, and limited capacity will likely hamper this. The Gaz Maghreb-Europe pipeline, or GME, linking Algeria to Spain via Morocco, is not in service. Diplomatic tensions between Algeria and Morocco resulted in the non-renewal of its transit contract. This cut off gas supplies to Morocco as well. Supplies to Spain were shifted to the Medgaz pipeline as it links both countries directly. Spain, in return, has started supplying gas to Morocco by running the GME pipeline in reverse. This is angering Algeria, which does not want its gas to benefit its rival. To the south is Nigeria, the country with the largest proven gas reserves in Africa. Even though it has no pipeline to Europe, it is Africa's largest liquefied natural gas exporter. Nigeria is in a unique position as LNG is projected to meet about half of Europe's gas demand through 2030. The EU currently imports 14% of its total LNG supplies from Nigeria, and there is potential to more than double this. However, repeated production outages and underinvestment over the past decade have seen gas exports decline. Meanwhile, talks have resumed regarding the revival of the Trans-Saharan gas pipeline. This would enable Nigerian gas to be piped to Europe. The pipeline, however, would have to pass through the Sahel region, which experiences stability issues. Europe's history in Africa is tainted. An argument can be made that Africa's resources should be for Africa first. The local market is huge. The continent still has over 600 million people with no electricity. Millions still rely on wood and charcoal to cook, leaving them exposed to indoor pollution. The use of these fuels has resulted in massive deforestation. At the moment, gas seems like the logical alternative. However, for the gas to make any impact locally, infrastructure is needed, which costs money. Revenues from exports could be a great source of funding. The window of opportunity might be limited. Europe has ambitions to be climate neutral by 2050. Africa itself has been pressured time and time again against considering investing in gas projects. The irony is real. The same countries pressuring Africa are scrambling for gas now to satisfy their needs. Africa should be able to use its gas for its people as well. The opportunity is now. African countries should act fast. They also need to be wise and avoid the resource curse. They can borrow a leaf from Norway, a country that was not corrupted by its fossil fuels, but instead used the opportunity to become prosperous.